Hey sweet friends, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie. For those of you who are new, thank you so much for clicking on this video. I am just starting a new kind of series, if you will, just all on my breastfeeding journey so far. So I've been documenting my journey through IVF, through my first pregnancy, and now my first little baby. We had a baby boy named Matthew in February, and so I have not had the easiest breastfeeding journey, as I kind of mentioned in the little first video that I put out a couple weeks ago. This has been one of the hardest journeys I've ever gone on because there's been so many things that have happened, but I think it's so important to talk about, so that's where kind of all of these next videos are just going to come from. Thank you so much for watching. If you like it, if you find it helpful, make sure you give it a big thumbs up, click that little subscribe button, and feel free to share this with any other fellow breastfeeding mamas or friends that you know that are pregnant, that may be getting ready to give birth. First and foremost, this is just my story. This is my journey on breastfeeding with my little one, and everybody's journey is different. There is no one that's going to have the same journey, so just keep that in mind. Regardless of what your journey looks like, a fed baby is the best baby. Whether you breastfed for 1 hour, 1 day, 1 month, 1 year, any amount of time is to be celebrated. So props to you, mama, for breastfeeding however long your journey is going to take you. So my goal for me and Matthew was 1 year. But that seems like a very daunting, like, oh my gosh, I have to do this for a year. So I break it down and just celebrate every week that we're able to breastfeed together. So that is just how I look at it now. Instead of saying, oh, I've got a whole year. Hey, I've made it 16 weeks or 18 weeks or, whatever it is, and just celebrate that little milestone each and every week. Going into our story, I'm gonna just talk about the first few weeks because there's just a lot that goes on in those first few weeks, especially because you've got so many hormones going on and your milk is trying to come in, and it's a lot. So for us, I immediately tried to latch him. The nurse came in and helped me. We're still, in the labor and delivery room, and he did latch, but it's very awkward. We did that the first time down there, and then we got moved up to our room. And just a side note here is that, when babies are first born, they're checking their blood sugar levels. And when he was born, his were fine. But the next time that they came in and checked him, his levels had gone a little lower. And that is kind of where we started on a downhill slide from there. I remember the lactational consultant came in once we were up in our room, and they were trying to help me position him and feel comfortable myself, doing it. And I know we tried the football hold, and when he was still so tiny, because if you remember from our birth story, which I can link that, he was only 5 pounds 10 ounces, so he was tiny whenever he was born, which was really easy to maneuver in different positions. But I know that they came in and they helped me. They did give me a nipple shield just to kind of help as well, and we had some success with that. But again, I don't remember him ever feeding for very long, which I don't know what a typical newborn feeding session looks like in the hospital. So, it could only last for 5 minutes, or it could last for a minute, or it could be 20. I have no idea. Just going off of what we kind of experienced there. And the other thing that I think I messed up on, which tips for you in the future if you are about to go into labor, or for my future pregnancy, is just to make sure that you pay attention to how often you're feeding your little one in the hospital. I definitely did not. They would come in, and I remember them when they would ask, well, when was the last time you ate? I don't know. And that was usually my response, and probably just kind of mom and brain fog. I didn't pick up that I should start paying attention very well. So just a tip for you if you are about to give birth, just kind of pay attention to that. So later that day, I think it was more towards the evening, one of the nurses came in and they were checking his blood sugar again, and she said that his levels had dropped. Here's where the emotions kind of play in, because they said his levels had dropped, and if we could not get him to latch on to me and to eat and get his levels back up, and his levels had dropped pretty good, I think. They weren't like borderline, they were like pretty low, that they were gonna be taking him to the NICU. No brand new mama, especially first time mama, wants to hear somebody say that they're going to take your baby away from you and take you to the NICU. I'm not saying that they would like treat him terribly in the NICU, and I am so grateful for all of the nurses and the NICU nurses. However, I did not want them to take him from us. I wanted to keep him in our room with us. So they immediately started offering formula or donor breast milk. And really, I feel like they started trying to push that a lot harder. And so in a hurried decision, I was like, well, I looked at my husband and I was like, well, I guess donor breast milk, because that's what we had planned. That was my plan, was to breastfeed him. So that was the kind of route that we went, was to start giving him donor breast milk. So that means he's immediately being introduced to a bottle. And that again is one of the many things that has created now our mountain of problems and hurdles is just getting bigger and bigger as we go. After that, I wasn't so much, I don't feel like I was encouraged as much to try and latch him onto me when it was time to feed him. Then the nurses, because I had given him the first, thing of donor breast milk, then it was anytime he was ready to eat, okay, well, do you want to do donor breast milk again? And I just don't feel like I was encouraged to try myself first before doing the bottles. And again, I just say that I was in a fog, because you just gave birth and you're just worried all of the hormones have hit by this point and you just want to do whatever is best for him. So that was just kind of the first day or two. Now, I do want to just pause right here and say I am so grateful, so grateful for all the mamas who donate their breast milk, because although my little one had to have a bottle in the hospital, it was from some wonderful woman who was able to donate her breast milk. And so I am truly grateful for all of the mamas who are able to do that. And if I get to a point where I can, I will most certainly pay that back to any future mamas who need breast milk as well, because it was such a wonderful thing to have in the hospital. So thank you if you are someone who has done that. So like I mentioned in that first video, my milk came in on Saturday. I had him on Wednesday, so three-ish days later is when my milk came in. I, immediately tried to latch him because I kind of needed the relief at that point. But by then, he's 3-4 days old and he doesn't want to work for his food, because, a baby that's going to be breastfed is going to have to work a little harder for their food versus getting it from a bottle. He immediately didn't really want to latch onto me very much at all. So I had to start pumping to try and get the relief that I needed, which was just hard because I, go into labor and delivery thinking, oh, I'm going to breastfeed him and this is going to be just this wonderful journey, and come back from the hospital and I'm pumping and not breastfeeding. And I know it's the same thing because he's still getting my milk, but I wanted that connection to him, just me and him. And in those first few days of pumping, you sit there and you pump for 20-30 minutes and you get hardly anything. I mean, I probably got like half an ounce, maybe. I think I might have gotten an ounce, maybe. But it was, barely anything. And looking back on it now, I should have been okay with it, because your 4 or 5 day old baby, their tummy is like teeny tiny. They don't need much. And so it was enough to support him with what he needed. But, you go online, and if you're in any of online groups or whatnot, you see these wonderful mamas who have an oversupply and they're already like pumping out all this, all these ounces, and you're like, I only got like half an ounce. That's okay. Like, anything is okay. So don't compare yourself to anyone else's output. Those first few days were super emotional. I remember crying so much with my husband, just because like I said, I wanted that connection with Matthew to breastfeed, and having to pump and him not wanting to latch to me. It broke my heart, and it was just hormones more. But I remember crying a lot in those first few days, just because you want something so bad, and it's not what you envisioned it would look like. So bless my husband, he was so wonderful, still is, but he was so wonderful those first 2 weeks, because he knew that whenever we got home from the hospital, so like I said, they gave me a nipple shield. However, in the transition of packing up and coming home and unpacking everything, it got lost. Now, if you've never seen a nipple shield, they are like super flimsy. Mine are packed up, but it's super flimsy, and if you don't know what it is, you could very easily think that it's just trash. And so, so he ran out and got me 2 more, thankfully. So that helped. It helped Matthew be able to at least like try and latch onto me. However, I think I didn't get the right size, so I ended up with a blister on my right breast or right nipple, and that was so painful. So then what I ended up doing is pumping on my right side and trying to nurse him on my left side, just so that I could at least like try and get that connection and get him back to, nursing on me and not taking a bottle. It was not easy. It took us several weeks before I finally got to the point where he was latching on to me again. So what I ended up was doing is I would try with the nipple shield at first, because that was the only way that I was able to get him to try and latch. So I would put him on with the nipple shield at first, because eventually he would like pull away, and so I would take the nipple shield off and then try and latch him, and just slowly working on that and just introducing, my breast to him every time. Slowly but surely, I think it took us like 3 weeks before I finally got him away from the nipple shield and back to me. So it took some work, but yes, we definitely had a huge mountain to get over, because, thankfully he did transition back with me. And since then, we would give him bottles at night, but he does go back and forth very easily and doesn't have problems right now going from a bottle to breastfeeding. So I'm very grateful for that, because I know that that does happen where, babies are introduced to a bottle and they won't ever go back to a breast. So I'm very grateful that he will go back and forth and not have problems. So lastly, I just want to give you some lessons and tips that I learned in those first few weeks, just to help out any future mamas who are about to give birth, especially if you are a first-time mom. These are just some of the things that I will pass down to any of my friends or anyone else that's about to give birth. The first one is take your time with the lactational consultants that are in the hospital. I did not do this in the hospital. They would come in and be like, oh, do you need anything? I'm like, oh, no, I'm fine. After we started doing the bottle, I don't remember them actually coming in and like trying to help me latch him. So I would just say, take your time with them. Make sure that you're asking them questions. Have them check, your holds and your the baby's latch with their mouth. Make sure they're getting a good latch, and just have them watch you for however long. That's their job. Don't rush them away too fast. That is something that I did, and I will not do that again in the future. The other thing is, if you plan to pump at any time, I know that your nipples can change and the flange sizes may change, but take your pump with you to the hospital. I know some people say don't do that. I did, and I had a lactational consultant come in and like look at it to help me figure out how to work it, but have them measure you to make sure that you are using the right flange size. I will cover this in one of the next videos, but your flange size is so important, and I did not know that, because if you're using the wrong flange size, it will definitely increase, or it will affect your output. So make sure they measure you to make sure that you're using the right flange sizes, because most of the time, I think the flanges that come with your pump standardly are too big. So you might need to go on Amazon or go on whatever site that you ordered it from and get some smaller sizes. So just have them measure you. Nipple cream, lanolin cream is a must. If you plan to breastfeed at all, it is a must. I don't think I could have survived without it. So make sure you have that on hand, ready to go as soon as in your hospital bag with you. Breast pads, so helpful for the sensitive nipples, especially in the beginning, because they just felt raw, because it's just so new, that whole new experience. So whether it's disposable ones, reusable ones, whatever the case may be, but they are super important to have. Drink lots and lots of water. Stay hydrated, keep yourself fed, just keep that water in you, because that again will impact your supply. So don't forget your water. Find a comfy place to nurse your little one is another thing. Whether that's you using a boppy or the My Breast Friend, whatever, just find that comfy space that is good for you to nurse in, whether on your bed, if you have a chair in the nursery, wherever that may be. Just find your comfy spot, especially in those first few days when you're trying to, you both are learning together. Your baby is learning to latch and how to feed, and you're learning how to do it. So you just have to work together. So find that comfy, quiet space just to kind of connect with each other. And my last thing that I'm gonna get emotional again, that you need so much is support. You have to find a support system. I am so grateful for my mom and my sister, and I'm so grateful that I had 3 wonderful friends who were there for me anytime I texted them and asked them for questions or just needed to vent or to cry to, because it was just hard in the beginning. I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have them and my husband along, and just to be there to hold me and let me cry. And so you know who you are. Thank you so much, because I couldn't have done it without you. So just make sure you have someone, at least one person that you can talk to that can just kind of help, at least just let you cry on their shoulder, because sometimes that's all you need to do is just get the emotions out. Drop a comment, find me on Instagram. You can always shoot me a message there. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have along your breastfeeding journey, if I can. If I have the experience myself, I'll be happy to tell you what worked for me. But that is it for this video. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, make sure you give it a big thumbs up. Make sure you click that little subscribe button. Again, this was just the tip of the iceberg of what has happened with our breastfeeding journey. And like I said, this was just us kind of going up one hill and down a little. We have more mountains that we're gonna climb in the next video. So stay tuned. I will be back again with more videos on all of that fun stuff. Let me know in the comments how I can be praying for you this week and in the next couple of weeks. But I hope you have a wonderful week up ahead. Take care, and I will talk to you soon. God bless.